Okay, so welcome everyone. Thank you for coming to our IcySea webinar. My name is Alexandra. You've mostly been in contact with me. So I'm working at Drift Noise for almost 3 years. I'm mostly in charge of communications, marketing, and sales. And I'm here today with my colleague, Jacob, and if he wants to introduce himself.
Hi, yeah, thanks, Ali. I'm Jacob. I'm in charge of the consulting and research part at Drift Noise, and I'm mostly involved with captains and navigational crew going into ice-covered waters. I also join fieldwork, support ships directly. So that's a bit my background. So Ali hasn't mentioned it, but we've both seen sea ice ourselves, so we know a little bit what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome.
Good to point that out. We are experts in our field. So, IcySea. First, maybe you're just before really diving in, as I already mentioned, it will be recorded. So that's why I asked you to remove your video for this part. I see you're all muted, so that's fine. If you do have a question during the presentation, feel free to raise your hand at the bottom here, and then I'll see that there's someone wanting to talk. Otherwise, feel free to write your questions directly in the chat. So first I'll give a first introduction of Drift Noise, of who we are and like why we came up with the idea of IcySea. Then Jacob will be giving you a live demonstration of IcySea and maybe some sneak peek on future features as well. And then we'll go over a bit of the next tools and data layers that we'd like to include in the IcySea app. And then the point that interests us the most would be an open discussion to really get your feedback, also know your challenges when it comes to navigating in sea ice. And then a short conclusion. So the Drift Noise team. So as you can see, we're actually quite a small team here. Mostly we do focus on software development, so making sure to access all the data sets in the backend and then putting it on IcySea, so making it available for anyone navigating as a view. We also do a lot of consulting when it comes to expedition and navigation. So you can see here the Endurance 22 logo with a picture of the ship. And this is because we were actually on board last year. So it was in February, March 2022. We were on board helping directly from the bridge with ice navigation. So downloading all the data, radar images, ice drift forecast, and so on, to really help with the navigation during this expedition. And on top of that, we do continue research. So we work in various research projects to find better ways to use data, maybe some automation of data sets, and also for ship navigation. So IcySea started with this idea that there is no ice information on the navigation screen. And the idea was having all the ice information on a screen with the ship's position. So that was the start of where IcySea came from. Also to kind of find solutions to all these challenges that are in the field. So first of all, organizing data sets, handling them, also collecting all the data, depending on the hardware that is available on the ship. One of the big challenges is low bandwidth connections in polar regions, so how to overcome this challenge and still having access to data. Removing the manual picking up data sets, regulations and so on. Is the data too old? And to integrate, to have the ship's position on the ice information that you're seeing, and so on. So there's a lot of challenges available, and as well, there's a lot of data that is available online and is useful for your navigation. So there's the weather data, satellite imageries, the ice charts, sea ice models and the forecasts, vessel traffic data. So having the AIS, knowing where the other ships are can also be helpful to know if you can go in that region, seeing if another ship of your same polar class has gone there. And then, of course, going back on the ice, so the ice age, ice thickness, historical data, ice drift, and icebergs. So the idea of IcySea is to have this together. But also, here's just an example of the ship navigating with the ship radar, going from point A to B, using just the ship radar. So that would be finding the best route through the ice, looking for the cracks. from A to B only with the ship radar. However, if you would have access to the entire Sentinel-1 image here as a radar image, you would have seen that there was a much faster and better alternative route, which you see in green here, going from point A to B. So that's really what we want, is to give you access to satellite imagery in IcySea to allow you to find the best routes through the ice. Now, of course, it's ice, but also maybe you want to avoid the ice and so on. So having access to these images is important. So in IcySea, we really want to combine all these data sets that were mentioned before into one application, and you can decide what you want to have access to or not. So yeah, so that was just really a quick introduction, because I think most of you, or some of you, are aware of what we do. And I'll hand it on to Jacob now, who will give you a live demonstration of IcySea.
IcySea is not it's not a regular, well, it's a regular app, but you can't find it on the App Store or the Play Store. That's something we oftentimes get. People learn about IcySea, are interested, and immediately go to the App Store and want to download it there. There are a couple of regulations that sort of make it more difficult for apps like IcySea to be part of the App Store, and that's why we're using it. It's browser based, so you would get access through one of your browsers, so Safari, Internet Explorer, but the one that we found was most useful and most easy to use is Google Chrome. So I'm just going to show you how that works. So you go to Chrome, type in IcySea.app. Most of you know this already, but I'm going to show you anyway. Then you do the registration here and then get your user token. And then you can load and run IcySea. That's what I'm doing here. So actually puts me to Bremerhaven, where I am right now. I'm going to zoom out a little to go to Northern France straight here. And then, as I said, it's not an app, it's still web-based, but you can still sort of create your own app icon, and also, which is useful for the offline mode. So you will still run it over the browser, but you don't have to go back into Google Chrome, type in IcySea.app, but you can have it on your screen. I'm going to show you how this is done. So there's two options. There's 3 dots up here, and then it gives you the option install IcySea here, or it's also a quick version here in the menu bar. So if I click here, it asks me whether I want to install it, and I click yes, and now I can close Chrome, and I have my icon down here, as you can see. If I close it now, it remains as my own icon, and I can open the app just like that and have all the features available. Yeah, Alexander already mentioned that this is sort of the idea of combining all the available data sets that are out there. So most of the data sets that we have are, all of them actually are open source data sets, so they're freely available. So that means you could go and get them all yourself. But yeah, as Ali mentioned in the presentation, this can be a really tedious process. And once you're done, once you have all the information that you're interested in together, it's already outdated, and you've wasted the time that you could have used for looking at the data set in one place, making quick decisions there. So this is the interface. It's map based. You can see the red areas here. Those are the regions that we have where radar and well, satellite images in general are available. However, these are somewhat limited, but we're able to provide you data in pretty much everywhere in the Arctic and Antarctic. If you're interested, as long as there's satellite coverage, we'll be able to provide that kind of data. Right now, for cost efficiency on the computational side, we're just looking at the regions where most clients are operating. But if you're interested in the Eastern Antarctic, there's no other ship going there, but we'll still be able to provide you with data there. So I'm going to start with the different data layers. One that we just included very recently is the surface temperature. I'm going to load that in here. That gives you the temperature at the surface, and you can pretty much see the differences between the ocean. Those are the yellow colors. So this is from positive values here. I think that's 8 degrees positive to minus 28. You can actually see the ice edge. So wherever you have ice, and this is where you put the CS concentration in, for example. So this is where you have ice cover. It gives you the temperature of the ice surface. This is why the temperatures are so low. And then over open water, it gives you the ocean surface temperature. And this is really a useful tool in figuring out when freezing starts. So if you're operating close to the ice edge, for example, and it's already late in the summer season, you can actually see that temperatures, if they're going down, you can expect new ice formation anytime soon when the weather is obviously in that state and the ocean has cooled down significantly. So there's really a useful tool in figuring out when to maybe leave an area because you can expect ice formation, or when you might be able to extend your stay there because the ocean is still fairly warm. This one layer I already showed the sea ice concentration. Those are the most basic layers. Sea ice concentration, of course, gives you the coverage of a certain region with ice. So you got the concentration in percentage here. Violet colors are 100%, and then you go down. Red colors are around 70-80%. Orange, you can see that on the ice edge here, and then 30-40% really in the marginal ice zone. This layer can be increased in resolution. So this is a 6 kilometer resolution right now, but there's this little button here, 3K, which would give you the 3 kilometer resolution of sea ice concentration. So this is obviously interesting in regions like the marginal ice zone, where you have like a higher resolution of what you see there. Maybe find an area where you can still pass through, which is not visible on the sea ice concentration. Important thing for these two layers, but also for all the others, is this little question mark icon here, which is sort of a user guide. And I'm going to click on the sea ice concentration, which gives you general information on the resolution of the data that you look at, but also, as they're all scientific data layers, there's some uncertainties with those data sets and some rules that you have to keep in mind. So this is an explanation of what you see on the images, gives you a little bit of interpretation help, and information where we got the data from, of course. Okay, I'm going to move on to the satellite images that we have. So you see those little rectangles, we call them tiles. And this is really the idea behind those, is that usually a satellite image covers a huge area with pretty high resolution, but that means also that the file size is pretty big. So you can have images in gigabyte size, and obviously that takes forever to download. So we focused on cutting the data into smaller pieces so that you can look at specific areas that you're interested in, where a ship is, where you want to go, and avoid downloading gigabyte large images for regions that you're not really going to and you're not really interested. So what you can do is, if I zoom in here, I can select a tile and look at the low resolution radar image, for example. If I zoom in, you can see the image here. I'm going to download a couple more. So you really get the idea of what's going on in the area. You see the ice, but when you combine it with the sea ice concentration, you also see that this is the ice edge, and the radar images really help you figure out where that ice edge is in that area. So this is the low resolution. However, sometimes you want to go into even higher resolution. I'm going to show you how that changes. So this is much higher resolution. You can really see individual ice flows. There's smaller ones here, and then the dark patches in between, open water. So this really gives you a more detailed view of the specific area that you're interested in. You really see the clear ice edge in this region, for example. Obviously, the most important thing with all of the data sets is knowing how old this data is. So if you're in the area you want to, and you download a picture, you want to know, is it a day old? Is it only a couple hours old? So with the radar images, you have this little show tile age button up here. And when you click at that, you see a color code, and it also, once you zoom in, gives you the exact age of this tile and this satellite image. If you zoom out, you just have the color code here. Yeah. Then there's another one, the optical image. And I think that's the reason we have that is that those radar images are usually the frequency of getting a new image can be quite low. So it can take a couple of days sometimes, depending on where you are. So these are really recent images, but this is also Northern Frumstrait. If you go into other regions, there might be longer time between new images. This is why we also have the optical image. I'm going to switch off the age here, and I click on the optical image, get optical image here. And the issue with this optical image is that it is dependent on whether you have daytime or nighttime, or whether there are clouds in the area, for example. So the radar image sort of shows you what happens at the surface, independent of whether it's day or nighttime, or whether you have clouds. And you can see that really nicely here. But the optical image, can be obstructed by clouds if they're in the area. However, the frequency of the satellite passing over the area is much higher. So you get an image every single day. So sometimes if you have, I don't know, 4 days of, no updates with the satellite image, you can still try and get a new day, a new update for the optical image. And if there are no clouds, this can be really helpful. Obviously, this area is not really useful right now. I clicked at those individual tiles separately, but if you're interested in a larger area and if you don't have any issues with the internet connection, for example, with the new Starlink connection, something like that, you can also go for get multiple images. So I can now look at a larger area, click here, and then double click to close this. And now I get the option what I want to look at. So I can start with the optical image, for example, tells me how many tiles, and then I can download those and look at what's going on here. And again, this is somewhat obstructed by cloud cover, but you can still see ice flows through. So there's a lot of clouds in those images, but you also get some idea of the ice underneath. And as I said, there's the explanations available here. So this will also tell you what you can see in specific areas and how to interpret the pictures that you have. So for this area, given that there are clouds, I would look at downloading more tiles, especially the radar tiles, to compare and maybe get a better idea of what's going on in the area. So I go for high-res radar image here, click on download, and then we get really something that is unobstructed by clouds. You see the individual ice flows, the ice edge there. And now, once this is finished, you can compare. Yeah, and get as much information as possible. So I usually find the radar images the most useful. However, sometimes they can be, as I said, a little old. And then it's really about getting as much information as possible to make an informed decision, figure out what you see. And I think the radar images are somewhat difficult. So you got the help menu again here, which pretty much tells you the most important things. You can see the different grayscales that tell you something about what kind of ice you're looking at, and that the radar images obviously never show clouds. And you also have a guide for an example picture here. So you have different ice types, and the explanation here tells you really what you see in those images, from young ice that has just formed, first year ice, to older ice flows, for example, multi-year ice in some areas. This is really help. And I think that's the most important thing, this is not just a standalone ice information service, but you also always have the connection to us. So if there's anything unclear, or if you know unsure about a situation, you can always contact us. We're trained in looking at those images, sometimes also difficult for us, but if you're unsure, we're happy to help and provide you with some interpretation service. Finally, we have the ice drift forecast, and this is really interesting, not only if you're in the ice, but also when you operate around the ice edges. And this is gonna put that in here. You can see those dots and arrows that have just formed. So this gives you an idea of where the ice that you're looking at is going to move over the next 10 days. So this is there's a legend down here. So the red dot, this one, for example, would be today or yesterday. And then you go in daily steps towards, where ice is going. And if we look at this image, for example, so we would expect this part of ice that we have here, or this flow, to go to the north within the next day, but then turn south and then turn to the southwest over the next up to 10 days. Obviously, if you're in the ice and you really want to be at a specific position, we've just done that during a Polarstern expedition a couple of months ago. This is not really useful because you don't have the high resolution, what happens within the next hours, but it gives you a general idea if you approach a region or approach the ice edge. How close to the ice edge can you go? Is the ice supposed to come towards me, or is it going away? It's really interesting for fishing industry, for example, that deploy cages at the ocean bottom and want to know, can I go back? Can I recover them? Is the ice coming in, or is it moving away? And that really makes a difference in deciding, do I burn all the fuel to go back there, or do I wait another couple of days because I know the ice is moving away again? So this is the idea behind that feature. So each dot gives you the position of an imaginary ice flow moving within the next 10 days. And there's also, again, the explanation, as I said, the days here and where it is going. What we also found really interesting or important, actually, going back to that empty navigation screen on the bridge, is being able to put your own position, like your user position, in relation to all those data sets. And we've done that with the user position button up here. And there's different options. I go in the settings menu now. There's this user position option down here, and there's different options. You can either use an external sensor. Sorry, that's the internal sensor. So if you use IcySea on your iPad or on your phone, you can select the location services, and this allows you to put the user position in IcySea. You can also connect it, and it's a second option down here. You can connect to the ship's navigation system, for example. So the positioning system of the ship can be displayed in IcySea. Or, and this is what I'm using, let me show that in the camera here, I have this little GPS mouse that I can just connect to my computer via USB. So I can use connect GNSS sensor here, close that window, and then click on the user position button. And it asks me for that sensor, tell it to connect, and it puts me right back to Bremerhaven, where I am right now. Obviously, if you're in the ice, it will put you next to Svalbard, wherever you are, and you can really compare it to the data that you're looking at and see where you are in relation to big ice flows that are coming your way, all these kinds of things. What I mentioned, you can use the app offline. I think that's really important as well. If for whatever reason your internet connection is broken up, then everything that you have already downloaded will remain in IcySea. So if we cut the internet for me right now, I would still be able to look at those radar images that I have here, the optical images, the sea ice concentration, all that stuff would still be there. Also, if I close it now and I reopen it, all those layers are still there. And I'm able to download the data myself. So I can go to export map up here, and it's already downloaded the data. And if I want to, I can now use those data layers to work on them in my own GIS system, for example. So this is not only an app to display the data and put your user position in relation to it, but it also allows you to download the data sets that we offer and work with them on your own system. And I've done that myself. If the ship wasn't able to provide me with the data I wanted, I could still go use IcySea because of the low bandwidth connection. I could download those tiny tiles for the regions that I was interested in and still got some piece of information and didn't have to download the whole image. Low bandwidth is another thing that's important in regard to IcySea. As compared to other apps that sometimes update data themselves or automatically, IcySea never does that. So you will never have the sea ice concentration layer updated if you don't want to. So if I don't do anything, I could have this sea ice concentration for years in there if I wanted to. So I'll always have to update it manually myself. And this is the little refresh button here. So if I click this button, it will actively download new data, but only if I do that. Same with the radar images. I have to actively click on the tile that I want to and select the option here to download the image. Exactly. That's our way of making sure that you don't end up, using up all your data volume if you don't want to. But you can, do that manually. And the layers, I think that's really important too. Surface temperatures updated once a day. Optical images, as I mentioned, are updated once a day. Radar images are updated as soon as the satellite image comes in. So we're connected to the servers of IcySea in that case. And once the picture comes in, we process it immediately. And then like an hour after satellite acquisition, it will be available in IcySea. Right now, we were relying on Sentinel-1 radar images. And there's unfortunately only one satellite in orbit right now. The second one sort of died 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. But there's going to be a new launch in early 24. So that will increase coverage again, and there will be more data available. And I'm going to show that a bit later. We're also working on including Radarsat Constellation Mission radar images, and they have much higher frequency of acquisition. And you will have more images available as compared to Sentinel-1 right now. So radar images are updated once the satellite's available. Drift forecast is updated daily as well. And the sea ice concentration is actually updated 8 times a day. So this, depending on what you do, if you're not like in the ice, but look at the ice edge, for example, you will get really information 8 times a day on where the ice edge is in relation to where you are. So this is the highest frequency of update that we have available in IcySea. I'm only showing the Arctic, I just realized, but of course we do have IcySea also available for the Antarctic. So there's in the settings menu, there's the option of switching maps. And with the upcoming Antarctic season, I think it's important to show that too. So it's the same concept. We have our data layers here, sea ice concentration. We have optical images and radar images. Unfortunately, we don't have sea ice drift yet, but that's also one of the features that we'll implement very soon. And knowing how important it is for a navigation officer on the bridge to have the map always pointing towards the north or the upper end of the map, we have this button here, rotate to north. So wherever you are, we're at the peninsula right now. If I click this button, it will automatically adjust the map and rotate it in the right position so we can look at the peninsula the way that we want to look at it. Okay, There's this feedback button up here, and I mentioned that if you're unsure or if you found something that's not working or a bug, please let us know. We're able to, or we're answering at least within the 24 hours. We're happy to help, and then there's always someone manning the station and being ready to, answer your questions and help you if you have any issues. Anything else? One more thing, maybe. You are able to also copy your coordinates. So if you found a feature or maybe an open water area that you're interested in, that you want to go to, you can copy the coordinates and put it in your navigation screen as a waypoint, for example. So you can look at decimal degrees, whatever format you want. If I click this, I will now have copied it. And if I now open Word, for example, go for blank document, I can just paste and get that position that I just selected. And then you can, use it for whatever purpose. And there's also the option of measuring distances. So if I start here, well, maybe I don't start there, but let's say I have my ship somewhere around here and I want to know how far it is to the ice edge. I can click to the ice edge, measure distance, and then get the information of how far I am away from the ice edge. These lines can stay in there if I want to, but you can also go back to measure distance. And this is a right click on the mouse and clear all measurements. And this drop-down menu, I should mention that, is a right click, and then you open it up and have all the information available here. And I think, I don't know, Ali, what you say, but I think that's it. And I think it's best if we open it for questions. If you find anything interesting or want to know something, might be the time for it.
Maybe just before we do that, just maybe show the options of deleting tiles. You can delete tiles only.
Oh yeah.
Or not. I think that's just one good point to show.
Yeah, let me go back to the Arctic. Exactly. So I have all our tiles here, and then all these layers, the radar and the optical images have this little button here, the delete button. And now I can select whether I want to delete the tiles that are older than 3 days or just all of them. If I go for the 3 days, it won't delete anything because they're all really up to date. But I could delete all tiles here, and then the radar tiles are all gone. And now I delete the optical ones as well. And then you have a fresh screen and can start downloading again. So one question we get asked pretty often is IcySea ready to use? And I would definitely say yes. I showed you all the layers that we have. They are really useful. I use them myself when I'm out in the ice, so it is useful. However, and this is what confuses people, it's not finished. We will tell you that we're still working on it, and it's a process of us including new features, getting user feedback on them, getting ideas of what else could be in there. So it is ready to use, and you shouldn't confuse it with IcySea being finished. Hopefully, IcySea will never be finished. It's always going to be new data sets. We're really closely working with research, so everything new that is available, we try to make available and continuously develop IcySea. This is sort of the idea behind it. I already mentioned next features. I'm going to start this little video. I told you that we're looking into including ice charts. So this is one of the backend servers that we have where we sort of test and develop the new features that we're looking at. So these are the American ice charts, for example. They will include ice concentration and stage of development. And we also have the egg code included, which is something that a lot of users have asked for. And ultimately, we want to include the Polaris risk assessment in there, the risk index as well, so that you can look at what kind of ship you have and then get specific information based on the ice charts and your ship's information for the region that you're interested in. So this is already looks like this in our backend service, and we hope to implement it ahead of the Antarctic season that is coming up. We just went to the ice charting working group meeting with all the ice services in attendance, and yeah, they're really happy about this opportunity, and pretty much offered their data sets to us, and the American ice charts will be the first ones in IcySea. Other feature I mentioned is the satellite coverage, and that's one of the questions here. So we're working on including the RADARSAT constellation mission data, which will provide full Arctic coverage every day. We already used it for our expedition that we went on with the Polarstern, already used those RCM images, and now the next step is including it in IcySea, so it is available just like the Sentinel-1 in the areas that you're interested in. And yeah, you won't just get higher frequency of the images, but also better coverage, because right now Sentinel is limited to, I think, everything below 82, 81 degrees north, and RCM has more coverage further north as well. So those are the immediate next things that we want to include. But if there's, I said this, if there's anything that you specifically think is interesting, icebergs, for example, that's on our list as well. If anything comes to your mind, please let us know. We're happy to develop IcySea based on what you users tell us. The research projects that we work in, just quickly, one of these projects is the automated classification of radar images. So if you have a radar image like this one, it's a Sentinel-1 image. We're working with our partners from the German Aerospace Center and others to sort of automatically classify those images. And if I click here, it will turn this radar images, the gray that you see there, the different ice flows that you can imagine there, into a classified image where you get information on what kind of ice am I looking at. So based on what the surface of these features look like, what the signal sends back, it's possible to determine whether it's young first-year ice or multi-year ice, newly formed ice. There's different options here. So this is one of the projects. So hopefully in the future, when you look at IcySea, you can have the choice between, I look at the raw radar image or already get a classification. And obviously, depending on what kind of ship you have, this will give you a better idea of what areas to avoid, because you can't go through multi-year ice, for example. And this is much higher resolution than the ice charts. Next one is really including ice drift forecasting into IcySea as well. So right now we have those dots and the arrows that give you a general overview of where the ice is supposedly moving. However, we also want to look at higher resolution. So as I mentioned, the expedition we just had, we're really interested in hourly forecasts of ice. So this project focuses on where is the ice moving within the next couple of hours. And we're still trying to figure out how to really display that in IcySea, that you can see how the ice flows are moving, how the open water areas are changing. So this is an active project as well. And finally, this really goes into the navigational part, is combining this information. So what you see in this image is also classified satellite image. So you get multi-year ice in gray, first-year ice, and new ice in blue, and dark blues is open water. And then based on the classified image, so the different ice classes and the movement of the ice, and this is really important, you see that everything's moving. We want to calculate optimal routes for the type of ship that you work on to go from A to B in this moving ice system. And yeah, our boss calls it the Google Maps of the Arctic Ocean. And this is one of the projects that we work on as well, to to not just leave you alone, so to say, with the data, but also give you a suggestion of where you could go or what looks most promising for the type of ship you're in. But obviously understanding that final decision will always remain with the people on board. But this is, yeah, sort of an additional help to support that. And I think, yeah, that's the outlook of the new features and the projects that we work in. And yeah, I think I don't have to repeat it now, but yeah, please be part of this development. You're the ones going into ISU, you find the things that bother you, the things that might have helped you, and we really value that input from you, and try to adjust and develop IcySea so that it is most helpful to everyone. Thank you.